Hello and welcome to this session, and in this session we shall continue our understanding of Python. Well, you know that in the previous session this was the piece of code that you had understood which had helped us to compute the area of the circle. Well, that way there is so much more that we can be playing around in this code, and through that we can be understanding Python a lot deeper. That way, let me tell you that this programming code does not satisfy the norms of the IT industry. And why do I say that? Well, that's because you have not commented your code at all. Comments play a major role when it comes to coding, and how really you can be commenting this and what are the different types of comments that Python supports is what something that I will have to tell you. So let me proceed. Even before I speak about the commenting part of it, let me tell you that there is one more way in which the same programming code can be coded. What I mean to say is, have a look at this line. Area is equal to math.pow star radius. Well, here, instead of me writing twice as radius star radius over here, what I can code it as radius star 2. Yes, here I'm introducing a new operator called the star operator. Please understand one thing, that here the star operator means the multiplication operator, but then when you will use the star twice like this, then it is not the multiplication operator, rather it is the exponent operator. What I mean by saying radius star 2 is basically that this 2 is at the power of the radius like this. In other words, it becomes radius square. But then in Python we cannot express radius square like this, rather this 2 we will have to bring it here and then have a star over here. And now upon execution, you can notice that again it is asking me to enter the radius of the circle, and the moment I enter it as 5, you can notice that I am indeed getting the output. So what I want my learners here to understand is that whenever you want to be expressing a number as the power of another number, then you can be making use of this exponential operator called the star operator. Hope I'm completely clear. Any which way, moving forward, when I'm going to be discussing the operators, I shall be discussing all of the various operators that Python provides in great detail. But then all that I wanted to say is that in this version you had coded the formula pi r square by coding it as radius star radius, and in this version, instead of coding it as radius star radius, I have coded it as radius star 2, which means it is radius to the power 2. Hope I am completely clear with this. Now that you have understood the second variant of the code, let me give you one more variant. Well, I'll take a copy of the second variant, and here this radius star 2 I can be eliminating, and I can be making use of the math module. Yes, all that I have to tell here is math.pow of radius 2. Well, here what you have to understand is that I am making use of the pow method or the pow function that is there in the math module. Well, here you can notice that the math modules is phi constant is what I had made use of. So that way modules definitely are handy for us, and moving forward, as I have told you, you shall be knowing everything that you need to be knowing about the modules in Python. But then all that I wanted to tell you is that in the second version we had made use of the exponential operator, but here to achieve the same task I have made use of the pow method of the math module, and in this I am saying that I require radius to the power 2 by specifying it as radius 2. Well, now upon execution, you can notice that again it is asking me to enter the radius of the circle, and the moment I enter it as 5, I am indeed getting the right output. So all said and done, what I really want my learners to understand is that coding in Python definitely is pretty simple, provided you know the various ways in which you can be achieving it. And all said and done, these sessions still being the initial sessions in Python, I'm sure you are able to understand whatever I am telling, but definitely there are a lot of questions related to what are all the various operators that are present in Python. What are all the different modules present in Python? So that way there are so many aspects related to Python that you need to master. But at this point in time, I'm sure that gradually you are understanding that coding in Python definitely is pretty simple. Moving forward, I shall be providing you with every detail that you need to know to master this important programming language, but I'm sure now you are gradually gaining in confidence in as far as coding in Python is concerned. But all said and done, let me tell you that this style of coding is definitely not going to be accepted in the IT industry, basically because it is a requirement that whenever you are going to be coding something, you also have to be adding comments. Let me consider this second version of the code. Well, I'm sure all of you can easily understand this code even without comments because it happens to be a pretty simple code. But then what if at this place I had a really complicated code? Then commenting definitely becomes important. In other words, what I mean to say is that whenever there is a complex code, then without comments, definitely it shall become difficult for others to understand the logic or the flow or the purpose of the code. Particularly in team projects, in case you happen to write such codes which do not have any comments, then it shall definitely create confusion and increase the risk of misunderstanding of your code. So if you'll have to avoid all of this confusion, then all that you need to do is to follow the industry standards of commenting your code. And particularly in Python, let me tell you that we have three different types of comments. We have something called as the single line comments. We also have something called as the multi-line comments and also something called as the inline comments. So what really are these three different types of comments and how do we really use this in our programming code? Let me explain. Let me again consider this second version of the code. And let me tell you that comments are always written above the corresponding programming code. What I mean to say is, have a look at this statement, import math. You know what this is doing is that it is importing the math module to access the mathematical constants and functions that are present in the math module. Well, all this that I have written over here is nothing but a comment. And here, all that I have to do is to bring in a hash to tell to the Python interpreter that, look, this statement need not be executed. Rather, this is an information called as the comment which has been included into the code so that it enhances the readability of the code. Well, this is what we refer to as the single line comment, and as you can notice, the single line comment is a comment that begins with a hash symbol and ends at the end of that particular line. That way, have a look at this piece of code. You know that here the code is prompting the user to enter the radius of the circle. But then not only is it prompting to enter the radius of the circle, there is also a scenario wherein the input that is provided by the user would be in the string format. But then I don't want it to be in the string format. I want it to get converted from the string format to the float format for easy numerical computations. That way, these two lines also happen to be the comments. And you know that a comment has to be starting with the hash symbol, and that is why I have two hash symbols over here. Don't you see that with these two lines included into the programming code, that whosoever reads this comment and then looks at the programming code, it shall be a lot easier for the person looking at the code to understand the code? Well, that is what is the purpose of the comment. And now have a look at this statement. You know, after all, this statement is helping us to calculate the area of the circle. And to again denote this as a comment, I will have to bring in the hash symbol. And then have a look at this code that basically it is printing the area, and not only is it outputting the area, it's also formatting it to 3 decimal places. Well, this is also a comment, which is why I would be using a hash symbol. So all that I want to tell is that even without these comments, definitely this programming code, I'm sure all of my learners had understood it, but then it's a simple code, which is why even without comments, you can be understanding it. But then with the comments, definitely it becomes a lot easier for you and also for your teammates to understand this, which is why commenting your programming code definitely is very important. But then what I want to tell my learners is that here I have made use of only one type of comment, which is the single line comment. And what you have understood here is that a single line comment is such a comment that begins with the hash symbol and it ends at the end of that particular line. But then what really is a multi-line comment? What really is an inline comment? Let me explain. Again, have a look at the same piece of code. Well, here I have made use of only the single line comments, but then here you can notice that there are actually 2 single line comments that I have made use of. You can see the 2 hash symbols. Obviously, it was a lengthy comment and hence I could not accommodate the entire comment on a single line, which is why I have created 2 single line comments. But what I can actually do is remove these 2 hash symbols and then bring in 3 double quotes like this here and end it with 3 double quotes like this over here. Well, this is also a comment, but then it is called as the multi-line comment. You can see that there are 2 lines present in this code. That way, you need not make use of only the double quotes. You can also make use of 3 single quotes like this. Even then, this comment is what we refer to as the multi-line comment. Well, whether you make use of the 3 single quotes or you make use of the 3 double quotes like this, all said and done, what I want my learners to understand is that whenever the length of your comment is pretty long, then obviously instead of making use of multiple single line comments, you can be making use of this multi-line comment feature. I hope I am completely clear with this. And then here you can notice that as of now, this comment happens to be a single line comment. But then this comment is such a short comment that I need not be placing it above the code. I can actually be placing it besides the code like this. And the moment I place it besides the code, then it becomes inline comment. Yes, the only difference between the single line comment and the inline comment is that the single line comment shall be present above the code beginning with the hash symbol, and the inline comment will not be present above the code, rather it will be present besides the code like this. Nevertheless, be it the single line comment or be it the inline comment, it shall be beginning with the hash symbol itself. I am sure I am completely clear with this as well. Anyway, this last comment, you can notice that it is pretty lengthy, that I cannot be placing it besides the code, and hence I shall let it remain as it is as the single line comment. So all said and done, now if you would notice this programming code, this comment happens to be a single line comment. This comment happens to be a multi-line comment. This comment happens to be an inline comment, and this comment happens to be a single line comment. Well, that way the type of comment that you are going to be making use of is definitely your choice. But then what you really have to know is that Python as a programming language provides us with 3 different types of comments, and now you know that here the single line comment is a comment which begins with the hash symbol and runs up until the end of that particular line. A multi-line comment is such a comment that begins with either 3 double quotes and ends with 3 double quotes, or begins with 3 single quotes and ends with 3 single quotes, and you can have any number of commenting lines enclosed in between this entity. And finally, the inline comment also begins with the hash symbol, just that it is not present above the programming code, rather it shall be present besides the programming code. Hope I am completely clear with all of this. So in this session, I am sure that my learners have been able to dive deep into Python and understand the various aspects associated with Python programming. Well, again, let me assure you that moving forward, you shall be introduced to every minute aspect of this programming language, and that by the end of this video series, you would have definitely gained complete control over this most important programming language. In my next session, I shall be taking up one more program, and through that, I shall unveil the various other aspects associated with Python programming. And if you'll really have to master this programming language, all that you have to do is to continue watching this video series. Thanks for watching. Let's meet again in my next session.